In May 2000, Billy Bob Thornton married Angelina Jolie in a 20-minute ceremony in Las Vegas. They wore jeans. He was 44. She was 24. 2 years later, the marriage was over. Tabloids blamed strange rituals and wild behavior, but the truth was quieter and far more human. Years later, Thornton would explain that the real problem had nothing to do with the rumors. It came from things people said to him that slowly convinced him he did not belong beside her. Thornton's life began far from the glamour of Hollywood. He was born on August 4th, 1955, in Hot Springs. His mother, Virginia Roberta Faulkner, believed she had psychic abilities. His father, Billy Ray Thornton, was a high school history teacher and basketball coach who carried memories of the Korean War. Even as a baby, Billy Bob drew attention. At only 7 months old, he reportedly weighed nearly 30 pounds, so large that local newspapers wrote about him as the heaviest baby in Clark County. His childhood moved across small towns in Arkansas, including Malvern and Mount Holly. The family struggled with poverty. For a period, they lived in a shack without electricity or plumbing. Water had to be carried in, and the bathroom was an outhouse. Food sometimes depended on whatever game his grandfather could hunt. Life was simple but harsh, and the instability left Thornton feeling as if he never quite had solid ground under his feet. When Billy Bob was 19, tragedy struck. His father died in 1974, leaving the family without its main source of stability. The loss deeply affected him. As the oldest of 3 brothers, Jimmy Doan and John David looked up to him. He felt both grief and responsibility. Around the same time, he struggled in school due to severe dyslexia, although it was never diagnosed during his childhood. Teachers often labeled him lazy or unintelligent, and reading felt like climbing a wall with no handholds. To escape the shame, he turned toward music, relationships, and sometimes alcohol. Yet those same struggles also fueled his creativity. He spent time in the Arkansas wilderness with his grandfather Otis Thornton, a forest ranger. Living quietly in small forest cabins taught him to sit with silence and observe the world carefully, skills that later shaped his acting. Thornton also battled intense anxiety and obsessive tendencies. Some of his fears sounded unusual, antique. Furniture made him uneasy, especially elaborate French chairs, and he hated using heavy silver cutlery. He even developed a strange discomfort connected to the facial hair of the 19th century British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli. These anxieties followed him into adulthood and occasionally surfaced in awkward or humorous ways on film sets. In 1981, determined to chase a bigger future, Thornton moved to Los Angeles with childhood friend and writing partner Tom Epperson. They arrived with a typewriter and about $500. The 2 men shared a tiny apartment and survived on almost nothing. Thornton worked odd jobs, pizza delivery, telemarketing, restaurant work, while trying to break into the film industry. The struggle lasted years. At one point, he served dinner to legendary director Billy Wilder at a Hollywood event. Wilder reportedly told him he was too unusual looking to become a leading man and advised him to focus on writing instead. The comment might have crushed someone else, but Thornton remembered it and began working more seriously on scripts. His finances were so poor that his health eventually collapsed. In 1984, he was hospitalized after living almost entirely on potatoes for weeks. Doctors first feared heart trouble, but the real issue was severe malnutrition. His potassium levels had fallen dangerously low. He survived, but the experience showed how close he was living to the edge. Another devastating moment arrived in 1988. His brother, Jimmy Doan, a musician and chef, suddenly died at age 30 from an undiagnosed heart condition while working in San Francisco. Thornton later said the loss permanently split his emotional life in 2. Even during happy moments, he still felt sadness. Years later, he honored his brother by recording and performing Jimmy Doan's songs with his band. Thornton's career breakthrough came through a character he had imagined years earlier. The idea eventually became the film Sling Blade. He wrote the screenplay, directed the movie, and played the quiet, troubled character Carl Childers. The independent film was made on a tiny budget, but gained powerful word of mouth after premiering. At festivals, at the 69th Academy Awards in 1997, Thornton won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. The moment transformed his life. After 16 years of struggle in Los Angeles, he was suddenly recognized as a major creative talent. Critics also praised his acting performance in the film, and the movie eventually earned over $30 million worldwide, an enormous success for such a small production. Yet, while his career was finally rising, his personal life was complicated. Thornton married 5 times before settling down later in life. One of his early long-term relationships was with actress Laura Dern. They became engaged in the late 1990s and seemed deeply committed. Friends expected them to marry. Everything changed when Thornton began filming the movie Pushing Tin in 1999. On set, he met Angelina Jolie, a young actress whose career was rapidly rising. Their chemistry was immediate. Within months, the relationship had grown serious. Then, in May 2000, Thornton and Jolie suddenly married in Las Vegas, without warning to the outside world. The marriage fascinated the public. Their 20-year age gap, matching tattoos, and intense affection and public appearances made them constant tabloid material. Stories circulated about them wearing vials of each other's blood around their necks. In reality, Thornton later explained that the story came from a simple romantic gesture. They placed a small drop of blood in lockets while spending time apart. For a time, the relationship seemed passionate and genuine. They attended events together, appeared openly affectionate, and even shared professional projects. But their lifestyles gradually drifted in different directions. Jolie began traveling around the world after becoming a Goodwill ambassador for the United Nations in 2001. Her humanitarian work took her to refugee camps and international missions. Thornton, however, preferred quiet and stability at home. His anxiety made constant travel difficult. As Jolie's life expanded globally, he felt increasingly out of place. The difference between their worlds slowly widened until the relationship could no longer hold together. By 2002, the couple had quietly separated, and their divorce was finalized in 2003. Surprisingly, Thornton later described the relationship as one of the happiest periods of his life. He insisted there was no cheating or bitterness. Instead, he admitted that his own insecurity played a major role. People often told him he did not deserve Jolie, and eventually those comments affected his confidence. He later explained that he often felt small beside her rising fame. While Jolie seemed to move effortlessly through the spotlight, Thornton sometimes felt as if he were hiding in the shadows. The problem was not a dramatic scandal, but a slow emotional imbalance that he could not overcome. After the divorce, Thornton continued acting and making music. Appearing in films such as Bad Santa, his life remained full of unusual moments and controversies, including a tense 2009 radio interview with Canadian Broadcasting Corporation that briefly went viral. Looking back today, Thornton speaks about the Jolie marriage with surprising warmth. He does not describe it as a mistake, but as a chapter that simply ran its course. Their relationship burned brightly, then ended quietly. And in his telling, the real story was never about blood buckets or wild headlines. It was about insecurity, timing, and 2 very different lives moving in opposite directions.